Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests joining us from Europe, a warm welcome along here to King Abdulaziz Racecourse in Riyadh for the official launch of the Saudi Cup 2022, which will see two terrific days racing taking place here on Friday the 25th and Saturday the 26th of February next year. Unveiling the exciting developments here behind the now $35 million event with its newly promoted Group 1 feature, I'm delighted to be joined by His Royal Highness Prince Bandar bin Khalid Al Faisal, Chairman of the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia, and Tom Ryan, the Director of Strategy and International Racing. We'll be inviting you to put questions to both Prince Bandar and to Tom a little bit later. If you'd like to do that, please do use the question and answer function and also state your organisation. We'll come to those questions very shortly and hear from both Prince Bandar and from Tom. But first off, let's remind ourselves of some of the spectacular sights we've seen here at the previous two renewals of the Saudi Cup. Some amazing highlights there from the last couple of seasons, most notably Mishrif winning the Saudi Cup 12 months ago. Space Blues went on to success in Europe later in the campaign in the turf sprints. We saw True Self and the pioneering Holly Doyle taking the first race on Saudi Cup Day last year, and Gifts of Gold in the Godolphin Blue winning the Red Sea Turf Handicap. But to tell us more about Saudi Cup 2022, it's my privilege to introduce to you His Royal Highness Prince Bandar bin Khalid Al Faisal, Chairman of the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia.
Thank you, Martin, and good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's a privilege of mine to be able to introduce the 2022 official launch of the Saudi Cup. These are truly exciting times for us. As some of you might have heard, Saudi Arabia has been promoted to a Part 2 country. And this really is a reflection of the determination and the hard work of everyone in the Saudi Cup or the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia, and the efforts everybody is engaged in. Special thanks to Tom Ryan, who really was integral in this process. I would like to also extend a thank you to all our friends in the International Horse Racing Federation for their support and their guidance in this process. Also, the Saudi Cup is now a Group 1 race, along with 5 Group 3 thoroughbred races on the undercard, as well as 1 Group 2 Purebred Arabian race. This really makes it very special for us, and we are determined in the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia to continue down this route to join the Part 1 countries and promote not only the international races but also the local races here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to reach listed status and hopefully group status in the not too distant future. I'd like to also acknowledge and thank all of the horse racing community for their continuous support of the Saudi Cup. We've had tremendous results and feedback and support from the international community, from our friends in the United States, Europe, Japan, and across Asia. as well as our friends here in the region, in the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, Qatar as well. And we really look forward to welcoming all of you here at King Abdulaziz Racetrack in Riyadh this coming February, for all of us hopefully to enjoy a wonderful weekend of horse racing. The past year and a half have been quite challenging for us here and across the world really in sports and specifically horse racing. We're finally moving towards a sense of normalcy here in the kingdom and across the world. But having gone through what we went through last year has given us a lot of confidence here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that we can put forward an international racing program, regardless of what the global environment is. But we are all very hopeful that we can welcome everyone, enthusiasts and spectators here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to enjoy a wonderful weekend of racing. I'm going to keep my comments to that at the moment and allow for questions and answers. Back to you, Martin.
Many thanks, Prince Bandar. If you do have a question for Prince Bandar, please do use the question and answer function. State your organisation, and we'll put those to Prince Bandar a little bit later on. Next up, though, we're going to introduce Tom Ryan, the Director of Strategy and International Racing. Tom.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you for everybody joining online. I suppose in my position, as I reflect across the time with the Saudi Cup so far, back to the April-May 2019, when I learned of the vision for the Saudi Cup, I immediately recognised it as something that had the potential to put Saudi Arabia right in the middle of horse racing world globally. And I think over the last 2.5 years we've achieved that. It's been an eventful 2.5 years. We've overcome many challenges, but I believe we have put on an event that is recognised as one of the best in the world right now. As Prince Bandar said, a sign of that success has come through the Part 2 promotion most recently, and unbelievably proud and on behalf of the club to see the Saudi Cup run as a Group 1 this year. I think it's a wider sign of how the industry as a whole has developed here. So it's not just about 2 days of racing. This industry is growing, it's been developed in the right way. I think Saudi Arabia has more to offer to racing nationally, regionally and internationally in the coming years. The one principle we started off with, and it's a principle that has served us benefit right to this day, and we will continue with this. We put the horse first. Right through from the airport to the travel, what's on site here through the quarantine, the stables, the training, the veterinary care that we take. Those equine athletes that make this event possible, they're our number one priority. And I would hope that will allow the best trainers and owners in the world with the best horses to continue to have the confidence to send us these horses, and we will do our utmost to do a top-class job when they get here. If you look at the Saudi Cup across the 2 years, I mean, a lot to like in terms of the global appeal. Very strong performance by the Americans the first year, the first 4 out of the 5 home, and a European winner last year with Mishraf, and very, very pleasing to see him go on then win 2 Group 2s, or two Group 1s, excuse me, on the turf. Again, it gives you a sense of the versatility of the surface we have here. And we truly believe that horses from right around the globe can come here and perform at their optimum on the surface that we have. There's lots of layers to the story here. I mean, the supporting card for me has some real potential in the coming years. There's a wide variety of races to suit many horse types. And you look at the potential that's growing there slowly. You think of little things like Cross Counter coming here as a Melbourne Cup winner the first year. Twilight Payment also partake in that 3,000 metre race. He won his Melbourne Cup after visiting here. We mentioned Space Blues earlier, you know, very, very strong in the turf sprint, and now in recent weeks we see him win his Group 1 in France, and we look forward to supporting him in the Breeders' Cup in the next 8 or 9 days. The point is that horses can come to Saudi Arabia, partake here on the very good facilities we have, and almost use it as a launch pad for their seasons when they go home. The statistics around the success they have when they go back to their regions or participate in other international races after is very, very strong. We also know then of horses that have come here a number of times. I think of Matira Sky, who ran in 2 sprints. Tacitus has run in 2 Saudi Cups. and it looks like Mishrif now is lined up to visit here for a third time. So all of these trends, we hope, will continue to give horse owners and trainers around the world the confidence to send us their very best horses to continue the success of this event. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And again, any questions for Prince Bandar or Tom, please do use the question and answer function, and we'll put them to our panelists here this afternoon. Prince Bandar, first off, maybe if we can reflect on last year, Saudi Cup was won by a Saudi Arabian owned horse in Mishrif, carrying the colours of Prince Faisal. How significant was that to you to have a locally owned horse beating the world's best mile-and-a-quarter dirt horses here in Riyadh? And how have the terrific scenes, the jubilant scenes we saw in the winners' enclosure, how have they permeated down into the racing scene in this country?
Well, Saudi-owned horses is not a new phenomenon. I mean, you look at Judgment, you look at a number of horses that have run over the past decades and have done well. But I think having a Saudi-owned horse win here in the kingdom did a lot for for horse racing in general in this part of the world. It really had an amazing effect locally to catapult horse racing to the forefront of sports here in the kingdom. I wouldn't be exaggerating to say that the Saudi Cup last year was probably one of the two most viewed and known sports events that happened in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And the Saudi Cup in general has had an amazing effect on the local horse racing community. It has really energized the community here. It has pushed owners and trainers to really up their game. You see now Saudi-backed purchases across the world. And the way we look at it here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we look at it as a regional, really, effort, working with our colleagues in the UAE as well as Bahrain to put together, and Qatar, to put together a racing environment in this part of the world that fills in, you know, a slow calendar time between November and March. And I think not only is it going to be really good for this region, but I think it also opens up opportunities for owners and trainers from across the world to come to this part of the world, participate in 2 to 3 major races. If you look at Bahrain, if you look at Qatar, if you look at Saudi Arabia and the UAE with the carnival there, I think that's a very interesting prospect for owners who wish to participate in this time of the year.
And how much pleasure did you derive, Prince Bandar, from watching Mishrif go on from here last year to go on to Dubai and see him go back to the United Kingdom and perform at that very highest level?
Yes, I think Tom mentioned that, and I think it's a credit to the track here. It's one of the few tracks, I think, anywhere in the world where you can have turf horses come and run and compete aggressively on a dirt course. It says a lot about the course here. It has gotten praises from jockeys across the world, and I think we will continue to see that it's an option when you come to this part of the world, when you come to the King Abdulaziz racetrack for turf horses to be able to compete and compete in a very aggressive and a way that gets the best out of a horse.
And Tom, from a racing perspective, what do you think it is about the facilities here that allow horses to come and perform well on the dirt track and go back and translate that form onto turf?
Well, there's a lot of factors, I believe. I mean, geographically, the airport is only 45, maybe an hour minutes, so an hour away. So we've worked very, very hard with the airport authorities across many different agencies to make sure that the horse is looked after at every single time. They're not waiting any longer than they need to. It's an hour, more or less, from when the plane door opens to them opening the door of the stable here in the quarantine. To be very fair to the people who built this facility in the first instance, the quarantine is excellent, the track is excellent. We even have a lovely set of villas here for the grooms that can be close to their horses, nice facilities in this building, the clubhouse where we're sat today. So it's a number of factors that come together, hopefully woven in the right way to give a delivery that makes sense for everyone.
And Tom, you were talking about the upgrade from Part 3 to Part 2 Racing Nation. A question from one of our viewers. Are you hoping to get Group 1 status for any of the other valuable races on the SaudiCup card?
Yes, well, so obviously the SaudiCup went in automatically as Group 1, which it was entitled to do on the numbers, rated very, very strongly. There's a number of the other races that are, rated in the higher bracket of the Group 3 situation. So we hope that they would progress to Group 2 quite quickly. And with that, as Prince Bandar said, then there's a handful of local races that are ready to be introduced to the pattern, which will increase the international appeal of racing here generally. So it's not just 2 days of racing in February we're trying to aspire to. It's the building of a wider industry and a greater relevance of what's happening here around the world.
Well, touching on that greater relevance, to you, Prince Bandar, from Mark Suster of The National, he asks, how important do you feel sport and horse racing in particular is to the future of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? What's been the catalyst for the establishment of the SaudiCup, and how proud are you of the event and how that it already feels part of that international calendar?
Well, I'm very proud of the event. I'm very proud of my team here in the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia. They've risen to the occasion. We've reached out to a number of experts in the field, led by Tom Ryan, I couldn't be more proud of them and what they've been able to achieve, and the expectations are even higher. Sports, for the past 7 years, when King Salman ascended to the throne, he made it very clear back then that sports is going to be a major part of his policy here, and he felt, along with the Crown Prince, that Saudi Arabia is nowhere near its potential or where it needs to be. So this was well before my time in the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia, and the introduction of the SaudiCup came also before myself joining the Jockey Club of Saudi Arabia. We found tremendous support from the government when we needed it. I think it's in line with the overall general policy that they started over 7 years ago in promoting sports events. Today you see major international events coming to this part of the world, and I think horse racing stands to gain a lot. Tom mentioned the status and the level of a lot of the local races we have here, and I think in the not too distant future they'll be looked at a lot more serious by the patent committee, and we'll see them being rated in one form or another. The opening up of our local races to international participation has already started this season, and will continue to develop in the upcoming years. And I think it just fits in very nicely with what's happening in the UAE and Bahrain to provide a very interesting perspective for, or prospect for owners and trainers across the world to come this part of the year.
And you talk of those 7 years and how sports have grown, and as you look to grow racing in Saudi Arabia, how important has the flagship SaudiCup meeting been in promoting racing across the jurisdiction?
Oh, I think it's done wonders to horse racing within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Its effect goes well beyond the weekend itself and people being excited for the SaudiCup. It has really pushed horse racing to the forefront of sports here in the Kingdom, and I think it's been welcomed by all the countries surrounding us in the region. I think the best is yet to come, and I really mean that in terms of horse racing. I think this is one of the few parts of the world that you'll see horse racing expand, become more relevant to the local community, and as it becomes more relevant to the local community, it becomes more interesting to international participation.
Okay, on to a question to you, Tom. And by the way, if you would like to ask a question, please do use the question and answer function, and we'll get the questions to our panelists. Somebody online asking, has the launch of this year's event been much smoother than last year's, and do you envisage any COVID-related issues in the build-up? Again,
COVID is something the world has maybe tried to manage over the last 18 months or more. We'd like to think that directly compared to last year's event, that we'll have more options available to us. As we know, and going back to the central point of our preparations, the horses. Travelling the horses last year was no major problem. It was the people, the grooms, the flights, and various other things that were a greater challenge. But we're hoping that the wider environment, obviously the more widespread vaccination rates that we have now around the world will help us, and the lead into that sort of February period will be, in direct comparison, a lot easier.
And with that in mind, Prince Bandar, it must have been deeply disappointing in year 2 of the project to have to race with no spectators. You must be looking forward to seeing racegoers back here at King Abdulaziz in February.
Absolutely. I mean, if you talk to anyone in any sport, having spectators and people enjoy the sport it just creates a completely different environment. Having said that, last year all sports were forced in a situation that none of us had any experience in. There was nothing we could reach out to or view to get any kind of guidance. Having gone through that and being able to put forward such an international event really gives me confidence that no matter what the situation is, and I hope that we can continue to improve on the existing situation. Just to mention, here in Saudi Arabia, the COVID-related cases are well under control. I mean, I think we have less than 50 cases per day, which is very comforting. And I really hope that, I know there's a spike now in Europe and in the US. I hope everybody can get through this phase. I think the medical services here have a system that we can fall back on and rely on. I don't foresee any problem no matter what the situation is, but I'm optimistic that we can welcome everybody from across the world to join us in this very special event.
Yeah, let's hope so. We have a question to you, Tom, from John Lees of Horse Racing Planet. Can you give us an update on the investigation into maximum security, please?
Yeah, again, we've been quite regular in our commentary on this one, Martin. We've updated people, anytime we felt we've had reason to update them. We are continuing to await the outcome of the legal process in America. It's unfortunate everybody has to wait this long, but we haven't been unable to continue with our investigation until evidence that we believe that may be available there comes into our hands. So, taking every opportunity to conclude it as best we can, but we now must be a little bit more patient and wait for the American process to conclude.
Okay, another one, Tom, looking at the international element of the meeting. We've got the Jockeys Challenge back again on the Friday, on the 25th this year. How would you reflect on the 2 previous editions, and what are you most looking forward to for the 3rd edition?
Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting concept that we kind of debated year 1, 7 men, 7 women competing equally. It's been a huge addition to the weekend as a whole. Very, very happy with both renewals. Obviously, horse racing is blessed with a very deep reservoir of talent when it comes, both male and female, around the world. So we'll have 13 new faces, hopefully. We'll invite Shane Foley back as the winner of last year's one, and we'll see what happens. This year, we're going to make it a little bit more interesting. 3 dirt races and 1 on the turf to test all of their capabilities as riders. So really, really looking forward to it. It adds to the Friday card, because again, it's a weekend of racing, So we have the international challenge for the Part 3, Part 2 nations. So from a European perspective, maybe some Italian owners would like to look at it. We're working with the Scandinavians in particular around that 30-day movement scenario there. A nice Arab race on the Friday on the turf as well. So it's something for everybody. It's like a selection box of chocolates, really. You can have what really suits you.
Another question to Prince Bandar. Mark Suster once again asking, Your Highness, you mentioned Dubai and Bahrain with high-profile events. Do you see this, I think you said just in a cheeky manner, do you see this as a friendly rivalry between nations? And do you feel the international pendulum is swinging towards this region, and in time this will become a global focus?
I think in general what's happening in this part of the world is good for horse racing. I think no matter where you are, especially in Europe, but across the globe, it's a time of year where owners and trainers are looking for opportunities out there. I think with the combination of what's happening in Dubai what's happening in Abu Dhabi with Purebred Arabians, and what's happening now in Bahrain, I think it just provides a very interesting environment. We are, all three of us are talking now and at advanced stages of opening up this region to each other, and it will become quite easy for owners to be able to move between these countries with all of the quarantine regulations to select the races they would like to participate in. You can come spend time at the carnival in Dubai, jump over to Saudi for a race, go to Bahrain for another race, and I think it's good. It's good for everyone, and I think Europe in particular, even with turf racing, having all of these three jurisdictions team up and come up with a unified approach, especially when it comes to travel and quarantine and so on, I think can be good for everybody.
I think maybe, thank you, sir. Expanding on that and something else that Prince Bandar touched on early on, a question for Tom from Mark Casello from the Irish Field. You mentioned other local races ready for upgrade. We've seen a lot of horses bought at Tattersalls this week to race in Saudi Arabia. I think we can mention into that the horse was bought for the Saudi Cup, Grosser Jack, for 700,000 guineas. He goes on to ask Mark, are there opportunities for European horses to race in Saudi Arabia outside of Saudi Cup weekend, and should owners and trainers consider sending a horse for a full winter campaign here in Saudi Arabia?
That's something we're working towards. There'll be small signs of that this coming season, but I would think maybe from the season 22-23, as Prince Bandar said, that the continuing opening up of that. The turf track here, by way of example, will run between mid-December and mid-March, so could be a 14-15 week turf season here. We already know that the dirt track is very versatile. That, coupled with the continuing cooperation between the GCC countries, I think will make it very attractive for horses outside the region to come, including any British or Irish. In an Irish context, obviously, at every level. We've seen Ballydial have runners here. We've seen Joseph O'Brien, Jessica Harrington. Even Ado McGuinness, would be considered a smaller trainer, has come here, really enthusiastic about what he's seen. And I think now you'll see trainers like that target races here for the Saudi Cup, get a greater understanding of what this venue has to offer. And then once we get the structures in place over the next 12 months, we'll be able to come here and maybe plot a wider campaign.
And Prince Bandar, just touching on Grosser Jack, you must have been thrilled to see the bloodstock pages full of Saudi interests going out to try and buy horses to win the big race on Saudi Cup weekend. Well,
with horse racing, it's I'm happy for what's happening. I'm happy that the Saudi Cup has a positive influence across the world, and this would be an example where everybody benefits. But you never know with horse racing. It's always surprising. I mean, if somebody told you that Mishrif could come here and beat, the formidable American presence last year, you would have said, that just can't be done. But this is horse racing, and on that note, a horse like Nick Scove, he got qualified. He came here, did okay, but had an amazing season so far this year. And it's just wonderful to see these horses from across the world come here, go back, perform amazingly, and it's exciting for all of us.
Yeah, Nick Scove, of course, finished fourth in the Saudi Cup last year and went on to win the Whitney, one of his three most recent wins. So as you can see, as we've heard from Prince Bandar and from Tom, exciting times for horse racing here in Saudi Arabia. The Saudi Cup now at Group 1. We have 5 other thoroughbred races on the Saudi Cup undercard now staged as Group 3 contests. We've got over $35 million on offer over the event, and just this week the Obaiya Arabian Classic awarded Group 2 status. So many thanks to Prince Bandar and to Tom. Thanks to you for joining us as well, and we do look forward to welcoming as many of you as possible here to the Saudi Cup in 2022.